No matter what has been enacted upon our body, no matter what has been done to us, when that victim says, I need to fight for my power, that victim is still missing their power.
Welcome to Healing After Harm, a place for nuanced conversations about pathways forward for individuals and communities after experiencing harm in a learning or healing environment. We'll be covering topics like accountability, repair, how to rebuild your life, responding to allegations, finding your voice, and more. Now, these conversations go to real places, covering topics like sexual abuse, psychological abuse, emotional abuse, financial abuse, amongst others. Please take care of yourself, taking pauses or stopping as needed. I'm your host, Hina Patel. Let's dive in. I am really touched and excited for our guest today, Elisha Tichelle. She has been a mentor, a guide, a teacher for me, and has played such a pivotal role in my own healing journey and my ability to reclaim my voice and step into leadership and speak of the topics that we are speaking of on this podcast. Elisha is a threshold guide, a nervous system alchemist, and so much of my understanding of the nervous system, working with my own nervous system and stepping into being a somatic practitioner comes from learning from her. Elisha, thank you so much for being here and being in conversation with me today.
I'm just so honored to witness you and to, have this conversation and be able to continue to walk with you.
So, on my journey, a year or so after I had fully left the teacher, this knowing had dropped in for me that at some point I am going to speak publicly. I had no idea what that meant. It just became a guidepost for me. And soon after that, I began working with Elisha, studying with her, and I had shared with her that this was something that I am going to do. And there was something really beautiful that you took that piece of information and sort of put it aside because your focus was really on me and supporting me in connecting so much more deeper to my body and really to understand the depth at which my traumas and my survival mechanisms had been alive and helping me understand them, embrace them, so I could find more of who I am. There's something particularly that I want to share and why I wanted to bring you on here is whenever I spoke about talking about my experience, I had people in my ear who were like, you need to speak up now because he might be harming other people. And you were one of the voices who was like, you get to take your time.
Mm-hmm.
There was something beautiful that I've held for years and now share with others that you had said to me, you need to alchemize your anger. Only when it becomes sacred rage, when it is no longer about you and him, only then would I invite you to step into speaking of all of this.
Yeah.
And I'd love for you to elaborate more on that.
Yeah. Specifically, the cues around sacred rage were specific to you in the fiery nature of, you're so much fire in your chart and in your makeup. So that was specific. So just if anyone's listening and they're like, oh, I have to wait till I get to sacred rage, that was specific to Hina in terms of like where she would be able to find the markers of knowing that she was holding your journey, right? So I think that so often in so much, whether we're talking about our sacred service, we're talking about speaking up about situations we want to be speaking about, having the, sort of where our journey begins to engage into the larger field. One of the things we do not know how to do and we're not taught is that requires that I am holding myself, my journey, my my container is solid. And we don't know how to set up, we don't work with our own inner architecture. We don't know how to work within our own field. We don't know how to sit into our own initiation. And so a lot of what we think that we're doing the work or we're helping or that whatever is that when we're doing it in external engagement.
I think about how when I was younger, I was like, I want to change the world, right? And it's felt like the last several years have been like, what if it's not so much about the external, but what do you need to shift within yourself first? And that's what I'm hearing you say is that we move so much to the outside world and what's out there and the problems that we need to fix or address or be in support of. And are we actually looking internally that do we have the supports and the infrastructure that's needed for that?
Right. And the thing is if you want to change the world, that starts with the recognition that you are the world that has to change. Right. And so I think so often, again, we forget that the external world is not the reality we want it to be. It's the playground, it's the expression, it's the metaphor, it's a way of understanding things until we can hold it internally. We're so quick to want to rush to move the chess pieces so we feel better about where they're sitting on the board.
Isn't that avoiding a little bit of what's the discomfort that's inside?
I think it's avoiding a lot of things. I think it's avoiding the reality of what the journey actually is and what it's about. Right. And definitely for many of us, that's going to come with a lack of capacity to experience all of the things that are part of the journey, including the things that feel uncomfortable and bring up experiences that we don't like. I mean, you've heard me say this many, many times. One of my favorite mantras is, I don't like it. I don't like it. I don't like it. Right. And that's followed by, and I can, or, and I will, and I choose, and I'm going to, and I'm here, and it's happening. Right. And it's like, there's a lot of things that has to follow, but like, there has to be an acknowledgement that I don't like it, but there has to be something deeper of like, and where is my power here? And where is my clarity here? And where is my orientation here? And what is this really about? And if everything in our life is about a bad discharge out of an experience, so that we can seemingly fix our position on the board, and so we feel better about that positioning, how do we ever know if we've completed an initiation? How do we ever know what the purpose was? How do we ever know, like, how do we know anything except for keep running, keep going, keep fixing. Right?
Yeah.
I think that when we look at the whole experience of life, there becomes a great and we become not like, so like there's acceptance where we do like acceptance, like, oh, I accept this. Right? Like we're saying acceptance, but we're really like, there's resolve, there's capitulation, there's like, like, well, I guess this, the womp womp, right? It's like, oh, I accept it, right? And then there's acceptance that sort of goes like, okay, this is where it is right now. This is what's happening right now. This is what, this is the what, right? And how do I learn to hold that so that I have 360 degrees of choice in what I move into and how I organize my resources and where I call into the support and where I'm in the clarity of like what my intention is. How do I actually out myself on all of the places where there is an agenda of a wound that needs to be honored and really, really met? Like, how do I actually hold my own wounds so that I understand what the unmet need in them is? And so I think, like, just to bring it back, kind of like to simplify it back towards what you were asking of like, why was that the thing I said to you? Like, you'll know when to move when you have it as sacred rage, is because that was when you would have held your wound in the way that you were like, I have moved through all of the components that I need to move through with this. And I am neither afraid of this, nor is it running me. I am seated fully in this experience. Not that I'm like at that place, like the placating place of like, oh, and now I'm so grateful that I went through that because it taught me so much, right? Like not that place, right?
Yeah.
But like the real place where you're like, oh, this is the sword that I wield here.
Mm. Yeah.
Right? This is the scroll that I hold here. Like whatever our particular roles are. Like we're like, yeah, I know some stuff. I've been through some stuff. I'm holding it. Right? I'm not offloading it onto you.
Yeah.
Right? That I tend to go, I would say, Brene Brown has mentioned this of like everyone has earned the right to your story.
Mm.
Right? And I think that there's still a place within most of our psyches that is expecting that the external validation or the external mirroring of our experience is going to change us.
Mm.
Because there's an inner child that was never witnessed properly and was never held. And so I do believe we need to be witnessed. I believe clear witnessing is part of our healing journey. But I think that if we're not doing that consciously and we don't have the right mentors and the right healers or holders, around us doing that, that if we're doing that from that place of thinking that the general public or some type of like, that's going to get us our clear witnessing, it's not. And so that could be a place too that we end up in re-traumatization, or we end up having experiences that are really, really not safe or not wise for us to be in at that time, right? With our public exposure, with all of those things. And I think that there's an aspect of like understanding from archetypally again, that when we move from the place of the victim, that there's still a place where we don't understand we have the power. No matter what has been enacted upon our body, no matter what has been done to us, when that victim says, I need to fight for my power, that victim is still missing their power.
And how might someone know if they are still in that victim, still trying to seek power, but they're not actually holding it?
Well, I think it's recognizing that no matter what has been done to us or what our experience is, we are still whole. We are still worthy. We're still valid. And yes, there's painful experiences that we're going to want to metabolize and healing that wants to happen. But there is something of recognizing like you are not lacking. Like you don't have to earn the love. You don't have to earn the acceptance, like all those types of things. So I think for each person, it can be a little bit different in what support. I think a lot of times when the victim, and I'm not talking about victim as in like experience. I'm talking about victim as in our consciousness, our
Our
holding our
mindset,
consciousness, our mindset. Yeah, that's a great way to say it. There is a place where we can't let ourselves be supported, right? The victim can't actually receive the support that it needs. It wants it. It's trying to find it. Right? It's talking about how it doesn't have it or what's not happening, right? So I think that can be a real place of like, are we really supported? Are we really resourced? And I think that was something that we talked about with you of like, what are the resources? What's the support you actually need before, during, and after going public, right? And I think that was something that you used in helping to recognize when your body was really giving you the signals that this was available. This was right on. And I think that what happened with you is that it didn't become about cognitive conscious choice. It became about following where the energy was open and available because your body was like, I'm resourced enough. I know how to get that support. I know how to sink back into it. I know that this is going to bring up things and make me vulnerable. And I know how to then call in my cocoon to hold me as I move through that. And I know where to place my expectations of validation and, all those types of things. And I think that you then, rather than moving from that, I should get out there and fix this. I should make sure other people know this. I should do all of those things. It was like, oh, I'm available.
Yeah. Yeah. It's actually, for a while, it was, I'm going to go public. I'm going to go public. And then when it actually happened, when I just started talking about it, it wasn't even cognitive. I was just
That's right.
writing a blog post and I was like, oh, it came out as a sentence in the blog post.
I think the thing that you did too is that you stopped wrestling with when is it going to happen, right? You just kept saying, I'm going to do this. It's going to happen. I'm going to, like, you just trusted that. And instead of like making that something you wrestled with, you just kept saying like, well, I'm going to do it. And maybe it'll be da-da-da-da. And maybe, you know, just like you kept saying it just like in the curiosity of the timeline versus like trying to force it or figure it out. And I think that's why then it almost surprised you, as it was just like, oh, and now it's here, right? Because it was like you were following that as an anchor, as something that you were moving towards, but without, I think, that struggle. You could have made it something that you really struggled and suffered around, of like, well, when am I going to do it? Well, how am I going to do it? When am I going to do it? What? And actually spun out a lot of your life force in that, rather than just being like, I know it's going to happen. I know it will happen when it's right. And I'm just going to keep doing my work and it'll show up. It'll do it. And it did. It just like, boom. And I actually really love that. I think that there is something anticlimactic.
It was very anticlimactic, actually.
Which I kind of adore, because I think as a drama queen myself, like there is this way that we can just torture ourselves in that place of like, well, how am I going to, I would just recognize, I love that, like that meme that goes around that it's like, you know, I was thinking about things that end up hurting my own feelings. And I think that that a lot of us do that to ourselves, not even just about the things that we want to share with the world, but there's a way that we keep our system churning and stirring in the hows and in the like, what is it going to be? And I think we can recognize, like, if that is happening, that probably there is creative life force that wants to be moving. And if we found a really great outlet for it, it would really serve all of our healing journey rather than turning that into like, you know, playing the scenarios and torturing ourselves with timelines. We ultimately have very little cognitive choice around timelines. And I think this is very hard for the self-help manifestation, you know, hacking culture that's like, we're in charge of timeline. And we're just really not in charge of timelines. What we can be in charge of is preparing us. And I think this is where, for me, like, not enough depth work happens for people, of like really sinking into the foundations. And so, I mean, that was the work that we did for you. I would just even that you could share about what was challenging in those places where I was like inviting you to do what for you often feels like nothing. In order to have that foundation that you're resting on, so that then things move with really big ease, and that you do really, really magical, powerful, wild fucking things easy. And without the backlash and without all of these other ways that it's just like, oh, wow, look what I just did. But it's because you spent time, and hopefully continue to spend time, dropping into these places of crossing foundational thresholds.
Yeah. And a big thing, of course, is addressing fawning patterns, right? Yeah. And like, because I for so long thought that to be loved, I needed to make myself invaluable to someone, right?
Yeah.
And so there's this place in if it's about sharing your story publicly and opening yourself up to the scrutiny of all these other voices, one of the things that you kept reminding me of is like, where is your center, right? And what's your voice? Because I gave so much preference and power to what everyone else thought. And if I had stepped into saying anything at that point, I would have been just turned sideways, because everyone's going to have a freaking opinion.
Right. Which I think you've even experienced since you have gone public, the way that those forces, even not even through malevolence, but that there is an aspect of humanness that wants to consume someone else's story and co-opt it for our own agendas.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And that in that, if you've lost that connection to your own innateness, having restored that before other people are sort of influencing you and one, again, not even because they are attempting to do anything wrong, it just somehow you seem to serve their agendas. Again, that's, I think, is so important for us to understand the agendas that are driving us, be able to out those in relationships. So I can be like, I really have an agenda about this. Like, I really want this to be the, you know, it's like, at least be able to out it so that we can all be really clear of like what's in the room. or the supposed silent partners that are actually, you know, really in control of these conversations that we're having with each other. Because when we do that, I think that's the place where we come into our own journey and we're like, I've lost what I lost the plot for myself. Like I lost what I thought I was following. I lost my reason why. And I think that it's one of the things we don't really honor, that everyone gets their own why. Right? We want people's why to be our why, even when we're not really clear about what our why, what our agendas are. We really want other people to be in support of that. And we're always like trying to get allies on our teams. It's like some weird, you know, battleship game where we're like, well, I've got to get enough allies to believe it my way, to see it my way. And then that makes my why, my agenda valid, because now we're doing it my way. And I think it's one of the things, having lived a lot of my life in academia and by committee, that drives me
Oh gosh.
fucking crazy about humans, is this need to sort of like co-opt allies and use other people's stories to support. And it keeps us from having the real conversations, I think, that we're trying to have.
And
And I
that
think,
happens even
yeah.
before we go into a more public domain, right? Like I had to have conversations with my parents, my
Right.
family members, right? Other people who were in that community that I had introduced to the teacher, right? I started telling people sort of one at a time, and then my parents. And I come from a conservative Gujarati family. Gujaratis are a type of Indian. And, you know, the general like attitude towards anything like this culturally is move on. It's a chapter of your life. You get to move on. Why? Like, don't dwell on it. Let it bygones be bygones, right? And so there was this place of forget me going public, right? There's isn't even this understanding so much of why is it taking you so long to rebuild your life or to go on to the next chapter.
Right.
There was a lot of voices even before I went public of people had opinions on how to do things and like what I should or shouldn't be doing, even in terms of, oh, you should go see this person or you should go work with this person, right? Like forget anything else, even how my healing journey should go.
Right. 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 So what were the ways then that you kept tethered to like, okay, this is my way? Like, how did you handle that with people's opinions? Like, did you have sort of a way that you were going to navigate that before it started, or did you figure it out as you were going?
I was figuring out as I went along, but what was really important is I had key people on my team, and you were one of them, that where I felt really met and seen and didn't feel like you were trying to put an agenda on me, right? So
Right.
I had a couple of people on my journey, practitioners, mentors, who were really there to go, what does Hina need? How do I meet her where she's at?
Right.
Right. And so whenever I felt this wobble of someone going, you need to do this, you need to do that, I kept, even if I didn't know necessarily what I needed, right? I had these places that I trusted, that I could just go be in my messy self. And people like you would help me go, what is the next thing? What's the piece of truth what's the kernel of truth for you in this moment? You don't have to have it
Right.
all figured out. What's the one little kernel that you can hold on to? And that
Yeah.
practice of each time returning to my center, finding that piece of truth over time, I got to build, we talk about resource, right? That internal resourcing kept growing because there was an alignment of agenda, so to say, that you were invested in resourcing me.
So beautiful. So beautiful. I think what you're talking about in that journey just really highlights two, I think, really important pieces around, if we've never healed our fawning, if we haven't even started to address it, and all of a sudden we're being influenced from all these other people and all these other voices, being able to choose yourself inside of that is going to be nearly impossible, because you're either going to choose from the active fawning of like, oh, I apparently should do all of these things, or I should say nothing, or right, like you're going to go back to keeping the peace, you're going to go back to acquiescing, you're going to go into you're going to go back into that place of like, well, obviously I don't know what's best for me, or obviously I don't even know what I'm doing, or, I'm going to harm all these people. I'm going to hurt people if I come out with the truth. Right. And I think that can be a huge part of us, of the expectation that gets put on us of like what we're going to do to what our truth is going to do to other people.
Yes.
Right. And I think that is there even when we're not talking about huge harm that's been done, but even more so, what are you going to do? Like you can't accuse somebody. You can't say the truth, like their reputation, right? It's like going to go all of those social norms, that all that pressure that's going to be put on. So yeah, that place of like, can I come into my own self? Can I find my own voice? The other aspect is the repressive fawning, right? So then it's like, well, I'm not really choosing myself. I'm just pushing against. So it's like, I'm just going to go the opposite of what everyone else says. And so that can affect your timeline too, because then maybe you move too fast, right? Or you don't get the resourcing. You don't create a bubble of support around you because you're feeling that kind of onslaught from other people telling you to get over it or not do it. And so you have to go to, a repressive place and activate more fight. It's really important. I mean, I just think understanding what it is to be in our own center is just not, there's just not enough talk about that in the world for me. There's just not enough understanding that being in the flow of you is one of the most important things you could ever do, but definitely in a journey where you're wanting to use your voice, but use it in a way that is creating an experience that you can live within, but also changes whatever dynamic you're here to change.
100%. I did so much immense capacity building with your mentorship and your guidance and your encouragement. And my whole relationship to the idea of power has also shifted. And I'd love for you to speak to capacity and power.
Yeah. I think they're essential. I think that they're the depth foundation of self-actualization. And I think the way that we're often taught about, I don't know so much capacity, maybe, not in my world, not where I came from. I wasn't taught anything about capacity.
I learned about it in physics class.
Okay.
What is the capacity of a circuit?
I think that power was something that for me got distorted early because power was about influence and specifically the influence of your expression. And so as a performer from a very early age, what I thought power was how you are influencing people, right? And what then that required in my own journey was this recognition of how, because I could not hold that energy of influence, it was always going to be a distortion. So what I was putting out into the field was not my clear desire, my clear love, right? It came from a self-abdication, self-erasure, which means it was innately not self-loving, which means anything that's moving through me was not love. So even though I had a great desire in my quote unquote power positions of always being a leader, running departments, all of these things, there was a way that I was locked in what I could give. It was not coming from the clearest me. And I could feel that. Like I didn't have words. Still don't have great words for it, but like I could feel that I was not able to move things and be with people and create things from the actual depth that I wanted to, from the actual fullness that I wanted to. I always felt like there was this kind of block. And I didn't know when I stumbled into my journey of self-abandonment, of healing that, how much would change in my relationship to my power. Because I wasn't looking for more power. I had external power all over the place, right? I had positions of power. I had external roles of leadership. I had all of these things that you would say like, well, that's the power. And it was, and for me, it felt like an appropriate power in my life. Like I wasn't looking for greater power in the world or anything like that. Right. But I could also feel that I was not living anywhere close to the fullness of me. And I was hitting up against this frustration of like, why, like what's going on? And so just in experimenting with my own understanding of like what's going on here and stumbling into like, okay, I'm going to heal this place of abandonment. Like, why do I keep abandoning myself? And where am I? And just looking at every place that I kind of wandered away from myself or got kind of caught up in another thing. And so as that began to heal, I began to notice that there was something different about the energy in my body. And there began to be something different about the way that I could speak with people and the way that they could receive the vision and the way that we could be in it together. And all of a sudden they weren't as... So one of the things that a system like mine receives a lot is, oh, you're so intimidating. You're so whatever, right?
Yep.
In that place. And so all of this sudden, they could say to me, like, so it's not that I became quote unquote less intimidating. It's that people could reflect back to me, oh, I used to be so intimidated by you, or, oh, right. And it was like all of a sudden there was an interplay that was changing the dynamic. There was a reciprocity in things. Like all of this stuff is shifting. And then as I began to really think about that from the nervous system perspective, what I began to realize is like, I'm actually holding more of my life force. There is less need for me to get it out into the quote unquote creation, to get it out into this thing, right? There's less of me offloading that into the field, right? There's less expectation that people understand me because I'm doing the work to understand myself rather than expecting that I'm holding the vision. So all of this place of like just these really weird, subtle experiments that begin to help me understand that there was something about me living in the fullness of my life force is what power is. That my power is me being plugged into my actual life force and being lit up from that place, being able to move that through my channels and my nervous system and my fascia and like actually be in the electricity of it. And then I began to understand that more from the field perspective and working with the technology of the sacred anatomy and the architecture of like what's going on in the fabric of reality. It's like, oh my goodness. So my power fuels me. Oh, well, there we go. So when I have my power, I actually have the energy to create. I have the energy to show up. I have the energy to slow down and actually listen and repair. I have the energy to say to someone, would you like to partner in this vision for me? I'm not going to force it on you. I'm also not going to control it. Like, oh, I have all of this. Well, so when I am resourced in my own power, I can access my full capacity. Cool. I want more of that. Right? I want to be able to live at that place where like now this isn't locked anymore. Right now I'm not sort of like, why can't I get them to here? Why can't I get them? Like, oh, so what I thought needed to be a capacity I pushed through or that I forced so that people would get the thing actually came from me holding myself more. And then all of a sudden I live in my capacity with my power flowing through me and I feel met. Cool. I feel seen. It's amazing. I feel heard. Like all those things that we think that are like not happening because we need to do more.
Right.
Actually happening when we hold more. We hold our power. Right? We're not in this place. So I think power, the way that I look at it, is the electric force of our our life force, our chi, our shakti, moving through our system. And so it's very biophysical in the sense that it is the electricity, the electrical force, right? So when light slows down, it becomes sound. And when sound slows down, it becomes form. So what we're doing with power is essentially opening back up through sound into light. So I'm letting more of that full aspect of my existence, my essence, be available to this physical form. Living into the capacity of myself means that I can create through that, from that, right? I'm living into my potential. I was a kid that always got on every report card, like not living up to potential. And so it feels like it's kind of like followed me around my whole life, like this idea that Elisha has more potential than she can access. And
that resonates. There's like
right?
so much potential.
So annoying. But I think that little bugger of recognizing like there is more of me. And I think that I have a lot of the people that I end up mentoring are similar in that aspect, that the kind of the world we were brought into, the way that we were conditioned, the family dynamic, like honestly, like, okay, I'm just going to say it. We learned that our half-assing was as good as most people's best effort. And
Yes,
so
yes, thank you. I'm like, I didn't have to work that hard, and I was still at like second or third best in the class. I'm like, why the hell do I care?
So there was a part when people were like, "You're not living up to your potential." I'm like, but why try harder? Right? Why try harder? And then at some point in my adolescent adultness, that kind of got contorted, and I was like, "Oh, I should be more ambitious," right? And so then it was like where that power kind of play became externalized, like to get those positions and to get chosen and to get recognition. But that became not about me living into my capacity, but it came somehow about like chasing some kind of external validation.
I mean,
And it wasn't satisfying. Yeah, go ahead.
I mean, whew, chasing power or not being able to hold one's own power. What I'm hearing and what you're sharing is the ways that I was looking for external validation, right?
Me too.
All the time.
Yep.
And honestly, one of the reasons that I was attracted to the teacher was that he held power, and I was like, ooh, I can get close to this. And if I'm close to it, if I am his like lover, like beloved, that I am so close to it that I get to have it. And if I am so close to him and then I know how to like work with it, then I get to have it like through proximity.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
That was one of
and
the
also
things.
probably like a subtle way of like, well, and if I do that, because if he's the power holder, eventually he'll open the gate for me, right? Eventually I'll get the permission to be my power.
Which never came. But it
doesn't come. And whether we do that with our parents, our teachers, our relationships, like however that's happening, because this is where societally we're missing the initiation into our power.
Yeah.
Right? And so because we don't have that rite of passage, and because it's not acknowledged and we don't understand it, we're doing what we're meant to do. We're just doing it in a contorted way.
Yeah. Like it makes the number of people I can think about in their stories, and so not just my own, right? Where we meet these people that are really charismatic, that have a wisdom system, knowledge, right? That we want, and we see them as a conduit for like something bigger and beautiful.
Absolutely.
And we're like, yes, I want that.
Yeah.
But then so we believe in this promise that we will have access to that by studying with them, by being with them. When they say bow your head, by surrendering at their feet.
Right.
Right. Yeah. And then their sense of power, because in the world, I think it's a micro of the macro of power, and the idea of power has become so distorted where it's exploitative and it's power over. And it's not about actually embodying people to be in their own sovereignty and agency, which to me is power, is holding your own power. That we come for this place of wanting to know ourselves better.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
Through these wisdom systems.
Yeah.
But in that, because it asks for surrender and devotion, but the other person's not like, they're not actually delivering on what we actually came for.
Totally. Absolutely. And I've been in that place. I'm sitting in the opposite place or the different place right now, where I am standing in the place of the teacher, the leader, inviting people into their surrender and their devotion, with really clearly asking for that not to be towards me, at me. And the amount of people that can't allow themselves to come into the devotion of their own mission and the devotion of the consciousness that we're here to create through, and to step in as co-conspirators and collaborators with me in that place, that either expect that it's going to continue to be the same, which is a totally normal expectation, right? That I'm going to also want them to acquiesce their power to me, which is, if you know me, one of my biggest places of lacking safety is when people fawn at me. With active fawning at me is like I'm a no-go. I have like 3 friends. Like I can't do it. Like no, active fawning and me are like, it is such an unsafe thing for me. So like I'm just not, I can't do that. I can't be actively fawned at in a way. It's just not. And so, but obviously like people expect that. But on the other side is like my attempt to be able to demonstrate that there is another way, that we can be in this devotion, this surrender together. And I think this is where there is new paradigms of understanding that while power is our personal sovereignty, we're also required to build these things together, to weave the aspects of humanity together. And so you're not actually going to be able to hold your full power or step into your greater capacity in isolation.
So with my teacher, I learned how I don't want to teach, how I don't want to guide, how I
Right.
don't want to support people, right?
Yeah.
Really,
Yeah.
really clear. With you, Elisha, and I've said this, I even wrote a blog post on this. With you, Elisha, I learned how I do want to teach, how I do want to be with people, because it was, for those of you listening, Elisha is literally the first person after the teacher that I actually accepted in my spirit as a teacher. And it was, I'm getting a little emotional here. Because you might imagine that after having a teacher like this and all this experience, I was very like, I don't know, like, where I want to, like, really have a level of like surrender,
Right.
right? And you were one of the first. And it was because you weren't sitting above us.
Right. No.
It was literally sitting in circle,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Um, and and I could see the ways that you would always, even if I'm learning stuff that's new around nervous system stuff, you would be looking at each of us and could see us in our gifts and would like go, how does that get amplified? And would name the places that, because I was in group settings with you, small
Yeah.
groups, with how we first started working together,
Yeah.
of you would be highlighting the gifts of each person in the room, right? And we're so, I could see the level of commitment you had, your devotion to them becoming fuller expressions of themselves. You didn't want copycats. You were, in
No.
fact, like, please do not copy me. Please do not try to be me.
The world does not need more of me. No, yeah, you're really right. Like that. And again, like there's a place where I feel like I'm trying to demonstrate that so much because we've had so many places of, I mean, I've been in them too. Like I've given my power away to so many teachers and so many communities. And I feel like I'm in kind of the last throes of cleanup around that in terms of like the place where we just keep pedestaling, right? And it's something like I'm really committed to in my own work, and I do my best to depedestal myself.
Thank
And
you.
then right, and then of course there's places where it's like the people just can't really hear it or see it yet, and they haven't had the experience, and I need to get knocked off the pedestal that they've put me on, and whatever that is for their journey. Like I'm happy to play, um, the role as that goes, but I really look forward to us getting to a place where we understand power, capacity, and sovereignty better, even if we haven't had the experience yet, that we really understand that it requires our own holding, and it also requires someone to be that threshold, to be that portal opener, and that those two things have to learn to work in right relationship together. And I think it's really essential for those of us who are here to help build a new world, right? That hierarchy is not gonna be the thing. It's just not, it's not gonna take us to the next
No.
level, next place. Yet synarchy requires that everyone is holding their particular threads.
Well, and also there's this interesting place. So, I am currently in professional training to be a domina or a dominatrix. And I call it, someone in the community called it consent-based power play, right? And so there is a hierarchy, right? when you're in a place of the dominant and the submissive. But what people often misconstrue is that no one's giving up their power, right? Like the submissive is still holding power, right? They have to actually be really clear in their center. They're just also giving trust to the dominant for this fixed period of time to have. They're holding 150% power while the submissive's holding 100% power, right? So, but they're in this relationship because in this moment, they're like, I want you to guide where we are moving because there's something that you have to offer. And then when we're done, we go back and we resume the way that we proceed in the world.
So I'm not a dom.
Yes.
I'm not trained to be one, apparently. So what I might offer is maybe a different, same different framework, is to think about it more like this. When we have hierarchy, hierarchy requires a pedestal, right? Because someone has to be placed above. When we understand power as a dynamic, as a resource, as a tool, and we understand it simply as how energy is going to be moving and accessed, we can take this type of shape. If you're watching the video, my hands are on top of each other. If you're just listening, my hands are on top of each other. And then we would rotate it. So we would take it out of verticality and rotate it to horizontal.
Mm-hmm.
And we would take it out of two planes and we would make it into a three-dimensional model where there is flow. And so the aspect is not that I take some of my power and give it to you so that there is that type of differencing, but that in that shifting of role, in that understanding of articulation and expression, the energy is moving in the field that we've created in a certain way. Mm-hmm. And that in that role, that the power exchange is about the expression and creation, not the flow. Mm-hmm. So the same amount of power is flowing through each individual, but how that is being directed and articulated might be what's shifting in that play. And that it is more about dynamics and less about percentage.
That makes a lot of sense. And I think about when I'm studying with someone, right? There is, yes, I'm going to question and ask questions and move it through my own system to see what's true or not. But there is also an acknowledging and an awareness that they are holding something that I want to understand more of, right? So there is a respect, there is a recognition that in this place, this person has more available or knows more than I do. But what I see as the difference is often in the guru shishya parampara or the teacher student dynamic, right? It's the teacher holds everything and knows more about every single aspect of life and all the things, and I know nothing. Versus here, where you're even speaking about this infinity loop, so to say, is that, in this element, this person has more to offer or has more experience. But then there's something else that this other person has to offer, right? Like, because this place of this interdependence that you were speaking to, something that I was also thinking about is, so I live in Western North Carolina in Asheville, right? And a year and a half ago, we had a hurricane that devastated the region. Now, I have been the perennial caregiver. I can solve everything. I know how to do it all, right? And it's something that I've learned to unlearn or had to unwind as I've been on my healing journey. And there's nothing like a natural disaster that totals your living region to make you realize that you can't do it all.
Right?
Literally. If I needed any other lesson of Hina, you can't do it all, that was one where you really had to go, what are your strengths? And okay, you have this strength, you have the muscle, you can carry the things. Beautiful. Right. Please be there in your strength and in where you have like a lot of ability to hold that power and and direction. right? And I'll be over here doing the emotional support work.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. I think, I'm, as I jokingly said, I mean, it was serious, but jokingly, it was like, I'm not training to be a dom. But what I would say is, as a teacher, as a coach, as a mentor, where I think there is a real simpatico in this, is that part of my agenda that I totally out myself on and move from is my agenda as a coach, as a mentor, as a teacher, as a leader, is to access within you where your capacity is not open so that you have an experience.
Yep.
Right?
And which is exactly what a dom does with their
Totally.
sub.
Right? So that when the way that you step into leadership is like, we all have our roles and our parts. And right now my role is to direct something, to open something, to access something, or to create a place of access that invites awareness, that invites experience, that invites an unlocking, that invites, right, something to move.
Yeah. Yeah. And I saw that, right? In the way we worked, like I'm a triple fire. So when you were talking about the sacred rage earlier on, I'm a triple fire. So for me, working with the fieriness has been a big part of my journey. And there was others in our groups who were way more earth or much more of a mix of different elements, right? And we all move through the world differently, right? So the way that you would teach us, you would give us a teaching, right? But then you would come in and you would be like, and I want you to feel how it works for this type of system and this type of system and this type, because it looks different.
I think it's so important that we're giving ourselves those permissions. And I think, it starts very early in our conditioning at home, when all the rules are the same for children, or all of the ways that we're parented, right? So you're not parented for your system, you're parented from your parent system. Yeah. Right. And whatever their current capacity and, sort of those things are. And then the interplay, just even if you come from a two-parent kind of household, of the conflicts between, two systems trying to come together. So I think at some point we got to go, okay, great. Now it's my turn to reparent myself how I really need to be parented. And if you're a triple fire, the level of permission that your system needs to be like, we'll just try it out here and see what happens. Just blow it up, burn it down, and then let's see what's left. Versus a system that's more contemplative, or needs to go a little slower, and needs to and it's sort of when do we start giving ourselves permission to be ourselves and understand that our own alchemical makeup really, really matters, and how we move and the tempos that we find. And even as you're talking about just in navigating that aspect, there's a way for you, even you giving permission for people to be in their places, there's still a way for you that it is most natural for you also to be orchestrating how that's happening. Right? And there's a way that as a networker and as a connector, that just you being able to be just a reporting, well, Sarah's doing that and Sally's doing this and Sam is over here. And, you're just there is an aspect of even when you're not telling people what to do, there's an aspect of you being an organizing orchestrator, sower of connective tissue.
Thank you.
That requires that. And how do we give permission for these things? And so that's really where the synarchy comes in place. It's if you're not given that permission, and if that's not honored in a community, what's going to happen? People are like, Hina's bossy.
Oh yeah. I was told that all the time. All the time.
Right. But the aspect is when I'm in place where I can own that I'm an orchestrator, what I've always said as a choreographer is I was made to move bodies into space. So when that is honored, and when I'm given permission to move bodies in space, but when I don't have to fight for that, when I can out my own agendas, and when the agenda that I'm moving from is that I want you to be you, and I get to help move your body in space so that you find you.
Yeah.
Right? Then that place where you're putting your devotion is towards where we're both in agreement about the agenda of moving your body in space to be more of you.
Yeah.
And the vision, I think, of a world that allows us to be who we are, but to do that in the rotating of roles and in the ability to step in and out of that place of like, well, I'll hold it now and you hold it then, and like that seeming place of like, yeah, if we just bring it back to like dom and sub of like, where are we moving from, and how do we all then get to have the opening into our capacity and our breadth. And especially for those of us who've learned to half-ass it, or then to seek, like all of those things that we've talked about before, it's like there's something then that becomes freeing. And I think that is one of the reasons why when someone finds their place as a dom or a sub, that does feel like all of a sudden you get to be like, oh, I could spread my wings.
Yes.
And there's something of freedom of that, right? And I think, again, like that is meant to be played out much larger, not maybe not necessarily in the specific roles of polarity of dom and sub, but like there's something about that in terms of finding your space and your place and your way of operating that finally gets acknowledged in the relational field and finally gets honored. And then we all go, oh, so that's how we do it. We all start to understand the agreements that need to be in place. Like so much to learn about that, as then like, how do we broaden that into the larger community of really understanding like there is space for everyone and there's a way to operate, and there's, there's room for all the wingspans.
Yes, absolutely.
Right?
And it makes me think about when I think about the places that this abuse happens in learning and healing environments, right? So much can be of there's these expectations of conforming, or that there's one way. And so I've learned from that experience of what I don't want. And so if we're now holding a vision for what is possible, of places of healing and learning, holding a lot of health, right? What I am seeing and hearing and what you're sharing is there space for individuation? Is there space for our differences within it? Is the teacher, if someone's thinking about how do I see if this person is someone I want to learn with, is there health in this environment? Is there space for individuality, even if it might be the same practice?
Yeah.
And, there's the element of I can now identify markers of health because I had to unwind some of the ways that I'd been conditioned and all the survival mechanisms and stuff. So there is also is that we're in this shifting of ages. We're in this shifting of paradigms. And it's requiring confronting our wounds and our shadows and doing the deeper initiations that you're speaking of, that are not so much about my external, not oriented towards how do I build external influence, right? Where the orientation is not about building power for the external validation and the titles and look at me and all my followers and all this, but it's about how do I feel this coursing electricity in my body.
Yeah, that's beautiful. So well said. So well said.
Elisha has a great podcast called Mystical Aunties with another badass woman, Elizabeth Dialto. I'm going to be putting it in the show notes on how you can connect with Elisha and the beautiful work that she puts out in the world. But Elisha, is there anything that you'd like to share with our listeners about what you're currently up to?
I think I'm going to be spending more time on Substack and possibly creating some more kind of community aspects over there. So I'd love to have people join me over there, but we'll see.
Beautiful. I'll put it all in the show notes, ways you can find Elisha on the interwebs so you can listen to more of her work, be more in her field. I adore her. I highly encourage you to engage with the work that she puts out there. Elisha, you're incredible. I'm so grateful for you. Thank you so much for being here.
So grateful for you. So grateful for you.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Healing After Harm. If you've enjoyed it, please like, comment, and subscribe, and share it with someone you think it would resonate with. Your support is greatly appreciated. If you have any feedback, I'd love to hear from you. Feel free to reach out on Instagram at Healing After Harm Podcast. Until next time.